So welcome to the second of our constituency reviews for the Irish General Election 2007. The next constituency we're going to look at is that of Kerry North. Kerry North is a 3-seat constituency, and the current sitting TDs are Martin Ferris of Sinn Féin, Tom McAllister of Fianna Fáil, and Jimmy Deanahan of Fine Gael. All three are seeking re-election. In addition, we have Terry O'Brien running for the Labour Party. We have David Gray of the Greens, and Morgan Stack running as an independent, the Irish 9/11 Truth Movement. And Norma Foley is also a second Fianna Fáil candidate. When looking at Irish constituencies, Kerry North is no different. It's very important to look at the geographical spread of the candidates and also some of the history of the campaigning within parties if there's a multi-candidate strategy. Looking initially at Fianna Fáil, who would have been the dominant, far and away dominant political force in North Kerry over the last, since independence really. There's an interesting story to be looked at in the last 25 years particularly. At one time Fianna Fáil had 2 seats in this constituency and indeed were always challenging for a second seat. However, over the course of the last 10 or so years, 10 or 15 years, 3 general elections, Fianna Fáil's vote has shrunk from being in the 50% mark in the early 80s, to now being just about the 30% mark and slipping slightly further, or so it would appear. This is an interesting example of something I've written about on my blog, of the difficulty for Fianna Fáil in 3-seat constituencies, where if the situation arises that their vote slips below a level where challenging for a second seat is a realistic option, that what tends to happen is infighting between 2 or more camps with regard to chasing the core Fianna Fáil vote. This has been best exemplified in North Kerry in the fights between the McAllister and the Foley camps, and essentially this has led to the diminishment of the Fianna Fáil vote, something that most particularly Sinn Féin have taken advantage of. I mean, it's interesting to look at the 92 election when Sinn Féin were polling at 2 or 3% in North Kerry, and then at the last time Martin Ferris polled 24+%. Now, Martin Ferris has built a very strong constituency base, particularly based on delivering for individual constituents. And it's likely that his vote will by and large hold up. Obviously last time, with a weak opposition campaign, if you were to vote against the government, a lot of people would have tended to drift towards Sinn Féin for that purpose. However, it's unlikely that Martin Ferris's vote would drop below 20% or even close to that. So it's quite likely that Martin Ferris would be returned on this occasion. Terry O'Brien, who's running for the Labour Party, again is another interesting candidate, building a profile as a community activist and also based in Tralee. It's quite likely that he will poll quite respectably. The difficulty for him is that the seat was very much a Spring rather than Labour seat, and it would be problematic for him to retain the entirety of what was the Spring vote, particularly on his first time out. However, he is believed to be campaigning well and polling well. However, whether that would be sufficient for him to take one of the 3 seats is difficult to say at this point in time. Jimmy Deanahan, then, the sitting Fine Gael TD, has traditionally had to battle to take that 3rd seat, and his base in North Kerry is particularly advantageous this time because both the Fianna Fáil candidates are from Tralee. So it would appear that Martin Ferris and Jimmy Deanahan pretty much have the run of North Kerry and Stole Fianna kind of area, and that the 2 of them with this should be almost certain to retain their seats. Of course, suggesting that someone is certain to retain their seat could lead to that little slippage of the 2 or 3% that would actually cost them their seat. So don't take that as a done deal by any means. The other 2 candidates, David Gray and Morgan Stack, interestingly, David Gray for the Greens, if there is a tide towards the Greens and he was to take, say, 3-4%, which would be quite a respectable showing for a Green candidate in North Kerry, it's quite likely that that would be more from a younger voter profile, which may well be taking from Martin Ferris and possibly Terry O'Brien's voter pool, reducing their first preference counts. Morgan Stack, who's running with regard to the issue of 9/11, is probably not going to poll significantly, although again he would perhaps appeal to a younger audience. He's making extensive use of the internet and YouTube. So it's quite possible, maybe if he was to poll somewhat less than 1,000 votes, but again those 1,000 votes could come from the candidates who previously took a larger youth vote, which my suspicion was that would have been Martin Ferris. These votes again are likely to transfer back to Martin Ferris or whoever it is that they're taken from. So again, I can't see them having a huge huge impact on the outcome. So, boring as it sounds, I would be predicting that Fianna Fáil would take one seat despite a reduced vote, and possibly their vote may actually drop below the 25% mark. I would predict that Jimmy Deanahan and Martin Ferris would both retain their seats, probably with votes somewhere at around the same level that they got the last time, although Ferris's may drop from 24 to perhaps 22%. Or maybe even 21, but this would primarily be as a result of the Green and single issue candidates. And the real question will be, first of all, Norma Foley's vote. Will it be sufficiently low that the Foley clan may actually be at an end in North Kerry, which would throw up issues for Fianna Fáil organisationally going forward? And also, would it be a case that this will become a seat in which Fianna Fáil never again challenge for a second seat, and in future just run one candidate, which would be the sitting TD, Tom McAllister? Thanks, and tune in for further updates. I'm going to be try to be a little bit more frequent with my profiles, although obviously they will be of a more relaxed manner than you get on The Week in Politics. Thanks again. Bye.